Have you ever stopped yourself in the early morning when it is still dark to look up at the sky, to look at the stars, and to look at the moon? Perhaps if there's enough moonlight, you'll see a cloud that might float by. And then in the east, there is this small sliver of light, this ever so tiny red glow that begins to grow brighter. And as that light grows, as it grows brighter, the light of the stars and the moon begin to subside, and eventually the rising of the sun will take over. And perhaps this now is where we are on our journey in Advent. The sun is beginning to rise. And this is actually an example that John Paul II speaks of. We hear in our first reading in Samuel that the line of David will never be cut off or terminated, and that the Messiah will come from the house of David with Joseph as his earthly father. And we will hear of this in the gospel too. And in our gospel that the church gives us today, that moment, that promise is fulfilled with Mary's yes. John Paul II says in his papal encyclical, Redemptoris Mater, the mother of the Redeemer. And keep in mind that John Paul II was incredibly devoted to Mary. And I mentioned this earlier this week, that when he died, there was the letter M burned into the top of his coffin. He saw such a need for her, and she was such a big part of his papacy and his priesthood. But he writes in his encyclical, in the mystery of Christ, Mary is present. Even, he says, before the creation of the world, as the one whom the Father has chosen as mother of his Son in the Incarnation. He goes on to say something that I've never really heard before. And he says, and what is more, together with the Father, the Son has chosen her too. Jesus has chosen her, entrusting her eternally to the Spirit of holiness. It makes sense. He too, Jesus, chose Mary along with the Father to be his mother. She is called full of grace by Gabriel because in Jesus, John Paul says, who the Father has consecrated all the glory of grace, she too by her motherhood is filled with it. Mary's fiat, let it be done to me according to your word, is in fact parallel with Jesus' words to the Father in Hebrews, where he says, sacrifices and offering you have not desired, but a body you have prepared for me. Lo, I have come to do your will, O God. Our preparation may be done for this Advent, but our journey of faith must continue. And it must be a journey that Mary can lead us on with her simple yes. Let it be done to me according to your word. This is our gift as we go to the manger now. That is the example that Mary has set for us. Let us now be rejoicing and be glad. Let us follow her now without fear to give to her our total yes, so we too can be filled with that grace. Come now, Lord Jesus. Come through Mary. We are ready.